All right, welcome everybody. I assume you can hear me. I hope so. We'll see. All right. Cool. I guess so. I think somebody had raised their hand before, but if you can hear me, raise your hand. You see, okay, there we go. Now I feel better now. All right. So today we're talking about the listing presentation, right? And there's a handout for those of you that are looking for handouts. And I'm going to go through what the process might be, and then even talk about, we'll go through, what you might actually do at a listing appointment, putting down everybody's hands so that if you have something you want to say, raise your hand. And it starts with a checklist. Let's see. All right. I'm just assuming that there's no questions to start with. So I start with the checklist, which I just included because I kind of like it. It's a nice, short little condensed what we're going to do. But what I want to do is go through sort of a breakdown in the different parts of the process. And one of the most important parts of the listing appointment is what you do before you go to the listing appointment. And so there you ought to call, and confirm probably the day before the time and the location, right? Just to make sure that they still want to meet with you. And in fact, it wouldn't hurt if you were taking a peek at the MLS, right? To see whether or not, the property has appeared as an active listing, right? Which is, you also might want to decide if this is a 1 or a 2 call listing presentation. Now, by call, I mean to call on the person. And so sometimes we would do a preliminary discussion on the phone, on a Zoom, or something like that, then go meet with them. Sometimes we go meet with them and then come back to give them a more accurate market analysis because we haven't seen the house. Most of the time, depending on where you are, but most of the time we do a one-step listing appointment, and we do that because we're in a cutthroat business. And if you don't close people quickly, you may find out that somebody else closed them instead of you. You might want to explain what the process is going to be on your pre-listing call. This is what's going to happen next, and will that work for you? And you tell them that you're going to come over and sort of give them an idea of what they're going to talk about. Now, as we're going through this, let me see if I can make this, how much bigger can I make this? Oh, bigger. All right. So as we're going through this, I'm going to get my little highlighter here. There we go. All right, there we go. Research the client. So look them up. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, anything, Instagram, look them up. And one of the things you're looking for, I made a reference to something called the triangle of trust. Is there anything in their bio, any people that are their friends that you might actually know? Right, that you could, because if you know them, and hopefully the client likes the people that you know, then that creates sort of a triangle of trust because you have some people in common. I would send them also an introductory email confirming that we're in fact going to meet with something like a service brochure. Now, if you're saying, I don't have a service brochure and I don't really even know what a service brochure is, this is a sample of a service brochure that I've used. It's an 8.5 by 11. When it folds, it folds in half, right? So what you're looking at on the right is the front and on the left is the back. And then this is the inside, right? Now, for those of you that are in my coaching program in my EXP group, you're going to find an editable version of this in the document library under the listing and pre-listing 2022 folder. And this gives us a way of communicating a little bit about ourselves to look more professional. As I was talking about, I guess last week, is that you want to look different, right? You want to look different. You might want to mail them a thank you card. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. Use a Sharpie, get one of those, mail it to them, right, in advance. Bringing a gift, it doesn't hurt to try a little bribery, you know what I mean? And sometimes if, like an example might be a real estate book. So assuming that we've had some sort of a conversation with them, and the gift doesn't have to be a book, but it's just an example. Let's say we've had a conversation with them and we get an idea that they're interested in investing in real estate. They're interested in something, right, involving real estate, and we can get a copy of a book that might fit what they're interested in. If they're moving to a particular area, something about that area, it never hurts to bring something, right? You could bring a bottle of wine or tequila, I guess, or whatever. I would stick to something real estate related that you think they might use. You should have dropped off a pre-listing packet. That's something that I talked about last week. There are samples of it in my document library. If you're not in my coaching program, not part of my EXP group, well, I don't know what to say. You could Google search it and come up with your own, but it shouldn't talk about the price of the property, right? Now, you're going to do a CMA. What we're going to do next week is we're going to cover how to do a professional CMA and what your different options are, which ones could you use that don't cost any extra money, that are easy for you to access, and how to make it, how to make it look nice. And also, because you're going to see me referring to this, you need to be able to tell somebody what their net proceeds is likely to be within a pretty close range. And you need to be able to do that not only in advance of you going into the appointment, but this is what I believe, you need to be able to do it while you're at the appointment. Right now, this causes some people, their heart starts to beat hard because they don't know how to do them. How do you do a net sheet for a potential seller? I don't know. The title company is going to do that for me. Maybe they could make me a whole bunch of different ones, right? But I've sometimes gotten into a conversation with the seller where they're saying, well, what about this and what about that? And how much would I net at this price and how much would I net at that price? Now, that assumes, by the way, if you're in one of the questions that is in my lead sheet, and you're going to see I have a sample of what a lead sheet looks like, but what are the questions that you're going to want to ask somebody is, do they know, this is prior to going to the listing appointment, do you have outstanding loans on your property? Do you know how much your loans are, the remaining balance, and do you know what your interest rate is? And those things are needed in order to provide an accurate net sheet. Interest rate. Why interest rate? Because there's probably going to be, interest is paid in arrears, right? So let's say you sell the house and it closes at the end of a month, they're going to owe 1 month's worth of interest, right? Which can be a lot. Sometimes we've had to guess how much their outstanding balance is, because if you have a program that will give you amortization, you can look up and see when they bought their house, what was the loan amount, right? That's something recorded. Our PR would know that. You have tax software that's through the MLS that would know that. And this is what I do when they won't cooperate, is I look to see what the average interest rate was when they bought their property. Google will answer that question for you. I'll put in the loan amount and the interest rate at that time, right? And then add the number of years, and it'll give me an estimate of how much their remaining balance is now, right? It'll give me an estimate. But we need to get that information from the seller to do an accurate net sheet. Many real estate agents are scared of doing net sheets. They don't know how to do net sheets. And this, if you can, will answer a question that the seller really would like to know, which is, how much money am I going to walk away with, right? They really would like to know that, right? Next week, we're going to talk about how to easily do a net sheet. There's ways of doing it, how you could prepare in advance a group of scenarios. So it would show them at this price, this price, this price, this price, what it would be. Meet with self, right? You put that in your appointment book. These are questions that you should think about, right? One is, what is the seller's most important objective? Notice I also put, what does the seller think is their most important objective? How would you find that? You might ask them, what's your objective? Now, sometimes you could get an idea because they'll say, we want to get the most money possible, right? That's our objective. But then they also are going to say, we don't want to do anything to fix up our house, right? We don't want to do any work. We don't want to do anything. Well, that's going to get in the way of the most money possible. What do you know about the seller? Do they drive a Ford? Do they drive a Toyota? I guess that's not what that means. Oh, I know what it means. Ford are it's a little, this is really an old thing about how to know what things you might want to ask people about. F stands for family, right? Family. O, occupations. R, relationships. Do you have any children? You know. And D is, what is your desire? What is your dream? What is your goal? I've played with this way too much because I have too much free time. I made one that was form EULA, and I'd added the U and the LA. But anyhow, you get the idea. You would like to get them to talk about themselves, preferably in your pre-listing phone call, just a little bit. You know, why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? Right, that sort of thing. What are 3 things that the seller is looking for in a realtor? If they know and they've shared anything, we want somebody to sell quickly, we want somebody to sell a high price, we want somebody to let us know what's going on, we're going to get somebody that doesn't bother us, we want, what are they looking for? Now, one of the other things that would help you on a listing appointment is to make a list. If you were a seller, right? So this is sometimes called thinking, you know, reverse thinking, right? I've been accused of that a lot. But reverse thinking would mean that if you were selling your house, what questions would you ask a real estate agent? Now, if you're struggling with this, you could Google search, what questions should I ask a real estate agent if I'm selling my house? And you're going to see that there are a lot of websites that have suggestions. Right, so make a list of those questions, and then once you've made a list of the questions that a seller might ask you, look at the list and decide, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Right, when they say, how long have you been in the business? Right, and you look at your watch and you're like, well, you know, what are you going to say? How many homes have you sold in our neighborhood? You know, what are you going to say? But just the other thing is make a list of objections. Now that's a little bit different than questions, right? So an objection would be, I'm going to list, I'm not going to make a decision right now. I want to talk to more people. I want to think about it. I want to list it with whoever sells the most homes in the neighborhood, any of the objections. And I have some answers to some of the objections, which we're going to talk about, but if you Google search real estate objections, selling a home, you're going to find them. Are there any problems with the properties? And strategies to handle their objections. All right. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to show up on time. Now, by the way, before you go there, for the listing appointment, you ought to go there before, like a day before or that morning or sometime before. Now, and you're going to want the reason for going and visiting. We're not going to knock on the door, right? We're not going to do that. But what we're going to do is, number one, we want to take a picture of the house, right, with your cell phone, preferably a nice clean one. And so that would require going at a time where the sun and everything, hopefully you can get a good picture. Why do we want that? Well, because when we do a CMA and when we start using some of the other software, it's going to stick a picture into the house. And it's going to take the picture from Google Street View, right? That's where it's going to grab the picture and stick it in. Now, that sometimes causes issues. And the reason it can cause an issue is because people have done stuff to their house. In fact, I have a listing coming up in Santa Clara, I sent a CMA, a report to the seller, who I know, who also, by the way, has a real estate license, but in another state. So this isn't an amateur. And the reaction I got immediately was, our house doesn't look like that. We've done this, we've done that. Oh my God, the picture you got, that does, our house looks way better, because it's an old Google Street View picture, right? So, and they were unhappy. Now, what I say to them is, this is a script, right? What I say to them is, oh, yes, I understand that this is what is on the internet right now for your house. Right, anybody who's searching your house, this is the picture they're probably going to see, right? Because this is the one that Google has. So we're going to fix that. And once we get, professional photographs, then people won't see that, they'll see something else. It might be better, however, to go get a recent picture of the house so that you could put it on the reports of the CMA. Also, if you're going to do marketing materials, it would be samples for their property. It would be better to use a picture that looks like the house they have today rather than an old one. The same is the problem with using old MLS photos, in that they may have painted, they may have changed the landscaping, and what they're going to be thinking is, oh my gosh, this guy's got old photos, he's using old photos, it looks terrible, our house doesn't look like that, right? So you want to go get a photo of the house, right? Number two, you just want to drive around the neighborhood a little bit, and you're going to be looking for things like a for sale by owner, other signs of properties on the market, coming soon, off market. Is there construction going on? Are people remodeling? What's going on in the neighborhood? Because you're going to be telling them, I'll bet, that you're the neighborhood expert, right? Isn't that what you're going to tell them? It would be nice to know something about what's going on in the neighborhood, right? Drive around a little bit, take a look. So you're going to want to do that. So now, right, this is all what we do before we show up. Now you're going to show up, and I would show up early, right? You don't want to be late. You don't want to be late for your listing appointment. Don't park right in front of the house. So if I generally, I'm the kind of person that's usually 10 or 15 minutes early, which is very frustrating because I'm meeting real estate agents a lot. And real estate agents tend to be 15 to 20 minutes late for everything, right? And I'm early, which means sometimes I'm over caffeinated by the time I actually meet the agent. So if you show up early, do not park right in front of the house and sit there in your car waiting for the right time, because sometimes they'll be looking out the window and see you, and they'll be saying, what's he doing out there? Why doesn't he come in? Why is it where it's not time yet? Don't do that, right? Don't pull into their driveway to park. Particularly, first of all, they may not like it, right? They also, if one of them isn't home yet and you've taken their parking space, they're not going to like it. So what I would do is I would park down the street or a little bit and wait until it was about the right time before I go in. The same, right? So you want to be on time. You knock on the door, right? And by the way, one of the questions that I ask on the phone, and I mentioned this probably last week, but when you're talking to them, you want them to tell you about their house. Would you please describe your house to me? Now, I probably told the story because I always do, but many times I've been on appointments where what the tax record said is not what we were looking at, right? Because they've done a whole bunch of work without permits. Can you tell me about your house? Describe it, right? Because sometimes what they describe, it does not look like what we've got in the tax records. Would you evaluate your home? Could you tell me what kind of condition it's in? What do you really like? What are your 3 favorite features? What are your reasons? What do you like about the community? Are there any hits against the home in the neighborhood that we've not discussed, right? And sometimes I would ask them some of those questions in advance. For me to have a decent market analysis, I need to have some idea of what kind of shape the property is in. right? Is it been remodeled? Is it a fixer-upper? I need to know, right? And so we would ask them those questions. By the way, one of the things that I would also recommend that you do, and when we get to the CMA, I'm going to go back to this a little bit, but one of the first things I do before I go on the listing appointment is I take the name of the street that their home is on, right? Particularly if it's not too long. If it is, I'll do it within a particular area on a map. Like I might go into the MLS, and if this is the street that it's on, I might drag a little box out around it, and then I'm going to let it rip, right? I'm going to let the MLS tell me everything that has been on the market in that general area in the last sometimes year or two. Now, what I'm doing, first of all, I'm looking for homes that are on the same street, even if it was a little while ago. I'm also reading the private and public comments that the real estate agents have made in the past that have listed homes in that area. Because a lot of times they're going to be telling you about amenities, that there's a park that's very popular, that the schools are very good, that there's shopping in the area. And when I read all of that, I become more of a neighborhood expert, because those are the kinds of features that we're going to want to mention in our marketing materials. We want to do a lot of research before we go there. Research on the people, research on the property, research on the neighborhood, right? And drive there, right? So it's time. Don't be too early, right? Don't be late. You go up, you knock on the door, take a half step back, right? Particularly if you're a great big person and you don't want to be, step back a little bit. Let them, open the door. Hi, my name is Mike. I'm with eXp Realty. We have an appointment at 6. Can I come in? Now, you're going to want to sit at the kitchen table. They may want you to sit in the, one of the other, the living room, the front room, the dining room. You don't want to sit in those rooms. You don't want to sit where you're in a chair and they're in a chair and there's a coffee table in between you. I mean, sometimes we have to do it because there's no other way, but you want to go to the kitchen table. First of all, there's a difference between the people that meet them at the kitchen table versus the dining room or the front room. And the guests are the people that are in the dining room and the front room, but friends are usually at the kitchen table. Also, for most people, most couples, they're more comfortable making decisions. They're used to making decisions at the kitchen table. Also, you might have stuff that you're going to take with you that you might want to show them. It's harder to do that when you're in a room and there's a coffee table and they're over there and you're on the couch, and it's just harder. Now, having said that, the last 3 or 4 listing appointments I had, we weren't at the kitchen table because there were issues, but that's what you want to do. All right, you want to make sure everybody is there that can make a decision, right? And you're going to find sometimes they don't want to all be there, right? I've seen this where one of the couple, usually I'll let that go. One of the couple wants the other one to meet with all the agents and basically collect all their stuff, right? And then the decision maker is going to look at the stuff later and make a decision as to which one's stuff they like. You want to make sure everybody is there, right? Because otherwise, what is the goal of going on a listing appointment? The answer is to get them to sign the listing agreement. That's the goal. Right? That's the whole purpose for being there. And you need to, if that's the goal and the people that are needed to sign the listing agreement are not there, that's a problem, right? Because they're not going to list it with you. They're not. You might want me to, so thank you for inviting me here to list your home. Notice the assumptive language. Here's what's, I'm going to take a look at your house, make sure I understand your goals, review the company, other homes for sale, and answer any questions you have. So I would like to take a quick look at the home. It won't take long. Later on, I'll have a solid list of homes improvements. So what I do, now some of you may already know this, but I'm sure there's somebody that's on the call today that doesn't necessarily know this, but uh, I have a school that helps people get a real estate license. I just thought I would share that in case some of you know of somebody who's interested in a rewarding, exciting career in real estate. So I make a joke about this, but what I start off is after I say, why don't you give me a tour of your house? This is what I say. Pretend you're a real estate agent, right? If you were, pretend you're a real estate agent and you were showing your house to a potential buyer, give me the pitch, tell me what you would do. I've had people really get into it, right? You know, and they're like, they laugh and they're like, you know, they go around and they're telling me everything they like about every room. And in fact, the connection to the real estate school is that when we're done with that, I usually say something like, that was really good. You did a better job than most real estate agents I know. Have you ever thought about getting a real estate license? You know, and it's a my thing, not necessarily a your thing, but we want to take a tour of the house. Now, I've seen others suggest that you want to look at the house without them showing it to you. I don't subscribe to that. I want them to tell me what they think is important about the house. Because when I'm putting together marketing materials, I'm going to parrot what they say is important. They're going to be happier. The other thing I'm looking at is anything I can see that's of a rapport building nature, right? Something that I can see, right? That might be, you know, I could talk about. You don't want to overdo it, but you want to build rapport. So building rapport, old school, 4 steps to any sale. Number 1, you build rapport. Right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Number 2 is to qualify them, and qualifying means ask questions. Number 3 is to show them that you can help them with their problems, right? We qualify them to ask them questions to uncover problems. If they don't have any problems, they probably don't need our service, right? So we build rapport, we qualify, which means we identify challenges or problems. We show, that's the 3rd step, that we can help them with those issues. And then the 4th step is we close, which is to ask them to make a decision. So building rapport, right? And one of the things that, and the agents that are in my group where I'm local, and that's a pretty broad definition. One of the advantages I feel I have on a listing appointment is the pretty much complete lack of feeling about being on a listing appointment. Right. So if, you know, I'm not nervous and I'm not scared and I'm not confused. And if you can get to that point, I know sometimes when you're new, you're nervous, you're scared, you're confused. It makes it harder for you to build rapport sometimes, right? To chit chat with them and that sort of stuff. If you gave them a pre-listing packet, particularly if there was some homework in it, like some questions that you might have asked them, you could ask them, hey, did you have a chance to look at that package that I dropped off, you know, and don't be too disappointed if they admit that they haven't done anything with it. But don't be too, sometimes you're going to find people that are going to read the whole thing, and if you've given them questions and given them homework, they're going to do it. But sometimes they're like, no, we never really got to it, right? So don't frown at them and sigh and roll your eyes. It's fine. That's fine. We can handle it now. Just keep going. And if they said, you know, anyhow, I put in a sample script, right, about that. So focus on the seller's needs. One of the differences, there are different opinions about how to do a listing presentation. I hate to shock you with that. There are different opinions. If you Google searched it and you watch videos, and if you're at a company and they have training and you're listening to people online, people have different ideas about how it ought to be done. There is the one side is the I'm in control as the agent philosophy. And in that side, that group believes that you need to control the presentation. You need to tell them, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you some questions, you're going to answer them. Then I'm going to explain what I do to get people the best price possible when I sell homes. We're going to talk about what your property is worth, and at which point we should all be able to make a decision. Okay, right? And in that particular philosophy, they don't want to talk about what the property is worth until they've had a chance to do their whole pitch. Now, my philosophy, the other side of it is, I'm going to ask them, tell me what's most important to you today. What's the most important things you want to know today from me, from our conversation? And this is my recommendation. Whatever they say, we do that first. If they say, well, we want to get an idea what our property is worth, we want to, whatever they say, right? That's what, usually that's the thing they say first, right? And so I'm going to talk about what they want to talk about first. I'm going to follow their agenda rather than try to make them follow my agenda. If they want to know what I think we ought to list their home for, and they want to know how much I'm going to charge them, and they want to know how much are they going to net, and those are the things that they really, really want to know. And I tell them, I'm going to tell you any of those things until I'm good and ready. I might lose them because they're, it's just my opinion, right? I talk about what they want me to talk about, right? A good, if you were to, rank listing appointments from a 0 to 10, with 0 being 0, of course, and 10 being perfect, what would constitute a 10 or a 9 or a 10 as a listing appointment? And my opinion, again, is you're talking and asking questions 10% of the time, and they're talking 90% of the time. That's my view of a great listing appointment. I've had agents go with me on listing appointments, right? And sometimes they were not, not happy, right? I mean, they didn't find it to be a satisfying experience. And the reason it wasn't a satisfying experience is because they were going to hear my presentation. That's what they wanted to hear. I want to hear your presentation, right? And then there was no presentation, right? There was this conversation where it seemed like I kept asking question after question after question after question. In fact, I believe in the document library, I have a list of a whole bunch of questions, but I just keep asking questions and questions and questions. I'll give you an example. Have you ever sold a house before? That's a question. If they say, well, yes, we have, well, tell me a little bit about it. Okay, well, that's interesting. What did the agent that you worked with, what did they do that you liked? And what did they do that you didn't like? Who are you talking to? Are you talking to anybody besides me about selling your house? I ask them that. They say, yes, we're talking to someone. Why them? Well, we picked them for this, for blah, blah, blah. What is most important to you in hiring an agent to sell your house? What would you want your agent to do? What's most important to you? How do you plan on deciding which agent that you're going to hire? Are you going to pick the agent who quotes you the highest price? Are you going to pick the agent who quotes you the lowest commission? Are you going to pick the agent that knows the most about the area and the neighborhood? Are you going to pick the agent who's going to do more to market? Tell me. And I usually don't go through that list unless they're like, well, what do you mean? But tell me what you're looking for in an agent. How are you going to pick an agent? What's most important to you in picking an agent? What's the most important thing you want your agent to do? Now, do you understand, if they answer all those questions, and by the way, people have always answered those questions when I've asked them, now they're giving me now I have a much better framework for how am I going to present what I'm going to do. So for example, if they've sold the house before and I ask them, what didn't you like about that process? They'll say, well, you know, the agent did open houses like every weekend for a couple of weekends and we had to move out. And, you know, one of our friends went to the open house and they said that the agent wasn't even trying to sell our house. All they were doing is trying to pick up other clients. And so, you know, we thought that that was terrible and it was inconvenient for us. And so we don't want to do that again. Right now, would that be a good thing for you to know before you spent 10 minutes explaining your open house policy and all the things you're going to have a mega, you know, open house, right? So if I hear that, then I'm not talking about open houses, not until after they sign the listing agreement, right? And after they sign the listing agreement, then I'm going to talk to them about open houses. But I'm going to explain to them the reason we want to do it is because it is going to be easier on you if we can concentrate and get all the people to go and look at your home in blocks rather than drip, 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 right? You know, or one now and then you have to leave and you come back and then an hour another one shows up. It's way more efficient to do that, right? So now having those questions and being able to ask follow-up questions and getting them to talk. If they talk enough and tell you enough, it becomes a lot easier for you to sell them, right? Because they told you how to sell to them, what's important. Now, having said that, I've also gone on appointments where we weren't sitting at the kitchen table, right? The guy said, no, we're going to sit over here, right? He wanted to be in charge. If they want to be in charge, don't wrestle with them, right? Let them be in charge, right? You know, it's their house. They're the ones who are going to make the decision. And so we all sit down, I'm sitting on the couch and the guy says, okay, give us your presentation. Now, that happens very rarely, but you need to be prepared that if somebody says, okay, I just want to hear your presentation, you got stuff, let's hear it, you better be able to give a listing presentation, right? You better be, oh no, I don't usually do this, right? But you don't want to do the full presentation unless they want to hear it. I've actually known agents that lost listings because they talk too much. You probably find that hard to believe, right? They won't shut up about themselves and about all sorts of things, talking. They want to do the presentation. And so they're telling people, well, sit back, relax, folks. This is going to take a while, right? And then we're going to begin with, you know, they may not even want to hear any of that stuff. So you're going to need to do a CMA. Next week, we're going to talk about how to do that, right? We're going to do that. But this is some of the language you might use. Let's take a look at crease and sale activities in the market. It shows us the comps, what are recently sold. This is a little bit of the language. Now, I have a rule about pricing. I have more than one. But there are two numbers that you're going to need to be able to say aloud before you before you leave your listing presentation. Two numbers you're going to have to be able to say aloud to them before the listing presentation is over. The first number you're going to need to be able to say to them is the answer to the question, what price do you suggest we list our home for? You understand? They may ask you that question. And it's not going to work. You say, well, I don't really know, I don't know, maybe we start, you're going to need to be able to say, this is the number, and this is why, and this is the strategy. When we talk about how to do the CMA next week and how to do the net sheet and do all that, I'll talk about some of the language around the strategy. That's one number. What do you think my house is going to sell for? Now, that's actually a slightly different number. Does everybody understand? Those are two. One number could be, what do we list it for? And the other number could be, what do you think it's going to sell for? Those are two different numbers. There's actually, and then the other number, I guess there's three. The other number that you're going to need to be able to speak is what commission are you going to charge? What are you going to charge? When they say, so what's your commission? How much commission do you charge? You're going to need to answer those questions. What are you going to list it for? What do you think it'll sell for? What's the commission? You need to be able to, and we'll talk about that, right? So next week, because doing the net sheet requires knowing how to do a net sheet. And I'm gonna have one of my favorite title reps who's got apps and things that you could use that would help you easily do it in advance. Present your value proposition and marketing plan, assuming they care. One of the things that I found, which frankly surprised me a bit and even frustrated me for a while until I let go, was if I asked the sellers, tell me what you want to talk about, tell me what's important to you, tell me what you want to know, rarely do they say, we want to hear your marketing plan. Now, we think that our marketing plan is really, really important and that everybody wants to hear it and all of that sort of stuff. I have found many people don't even want to know about it. They don't want to hear about it. Why wouldn't they want to hear about it? Because they think that all real estate agents are pretty much the same anyhow, and we know what we're going to do. Right? We know what we're going to do. Right? And so I assume you already know how you're going to do all that. That's fine. I mean, they don't all want to hear it. So if they don't want to hear it, if they don't say, I want to know what you're going to do, in detail, don't give them the detail. Don't say, well, I'm going to create a Pinterest, board for you, and you're going to have your own Twitter, for your property, and there's going to be, I mean, they don't, unless they have expressed some interest in hearing about all that stuff, don't do it, right? But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a value proposition. I have a sample, right? I have a sample. Objections, your experience. Now, if you, I'm a partner with other, so let's say you're a brand new agent, right? Could that be an issue? Perhaps. It could be an issue. What are the answers to that, right? Well, you don't have a lot of experience. However, you're part of a company that has a lot of experience. If you're in my group, you're on a team that has a lot of experience. And one of the conversations that I always go through with the seller is I ask them when they bought the house, why did they buy the house? And then they'll tell me why they bought the house. And rarely do they say because of the listing agent. They almost never say, well, the company and the listing agent. And so the point of that is that it's not going to matter who the company is and who the listing agent is when their house is sold. The new buyers aren't going to care either, right? They're not going to care. And I may have shared this line already, but I actually tell sellers, I said, this is a secret that most real estate agents aren't going to share with you, but real estate agents don't actually sell houses. We don't sell houses. Houses sell houses, right? Now, that doesn't mean we don't have an important function, but nobody's going to buy your house because it was listed with Compass or Redfin or EXP or nobody. Buyers don't care. You didn't care when you bought this house. Nobody cares. Buyers do not care about that. Buyers don't care what the name of the listing agent is. Buyers don't care about that. Buyers care about the house. And so by using that approach, sometimes experience doesn't look as important, but you're in a group where there's been a lot of, it's a big group. And we need to get, so anyhow, and there's some commission. I'm going to then, here, let me do this while we're going on. Some of you are not going to like what I'm about to say, but I'm sorry. I'm going to say it anyhow. And then here, I'm logging into something to show. Oh, all right, come on. All right. How much commission are you going to charge? I want 6%. Okay. Other people have said they'll do it for less. Well, I'm worth it. Well, they seem to be worth it too, right? You know, a lot of them have more experience, frankly, than you do, and they sell homes in our neighborhood a lot, and it doesn't seem to have any problem. So why would we pay you 6% when they'll do it for some other percentage? And my recommendation is don't get hung up on the percentage, but think about how much money are you going to make. Now, I was talking to an agent yesterday from one of the big ones, right? You know, the Coldwell Banker, Keller Williams, Compass, Intero, that kind of one of those, let's just say. And I've had another agent who was working in the East Bay, and also for that one was working for Keller Williams. And one of the issues was how much commission can you get away with charging? Now, a lot of the big companies have limits, right? They want you to charge. I've seen some that have 5. There's a company that I was working with in Saratoga. 6% is the office standard. I'm not talking about something 20 years ago. I'm talking about right now, 6%. Right now, in the market we're in, that could be a huge amount of money. And so what my recommendation is, what you want to do is to look at the numbers. Would I sell a house for 1.5% on the listing side? Depends on the price, right? If it's $1 million house, it's $15,000. Now I'm lucky in that I work for eXp Realty and I've already capped, which means I get 100%. So it's not a big deal. If it's a $2 million house, that's still $30,000. And if you have listings, it's easier to get more listings. And if you have more listings, it's easier to get buyer clients. It just works that way. And by the way, if this is in your farm and this is your first appointment, you're going to want to get the listing no matter how much, at whatever price and whatever commission you need to do, go get the listing. And one of the things I like about eXp is they don't have any rules on commissions. They have no rules. So I can negotiate any listing amount I want to negotiate without having to ask the broker, without having to get permission. I can just do it. And so what I usually do with this conversation is I've had people ask me on the phone, how much commission are you going to charge me? Now, I usually do not talk about that on the phone. But what I would say on the phone is this: look, the amount is negotiable, and I'll tell you this: the commission rate is not going to be what keeps us from working together. It's not going to be what keeps us from working together, right? I'm competitive. I know what's going on in the market, and we'll discuss it when I get there, right? So that's one of the things you need to know, right? Is how low could you go? How low will you go? And if it's, because you understand, if they do everything we want them to do to get the property ready and it's staged and it's painted and it's marketed right, how long is it going to be on the market? 2 weeks, right? The average in my market is 8 days before something sells. I'll take 15 grand. I'll take 20 grand. I'll take it, right? If you don't want to, because it's not 6%, refer it to me. And then we're going to close for the agreement. And that's when we start the service. And I've sort of summarized some of the scripts. So let me show you what and for those of you that are in my coaching program, there's a editable copy of this. Let me see I got how long between the call and the meeting if this other doesn't specify a time. Usually the phone call is to confirm an appointment, so when they call on the phone, I would ask them a lot of these questions on the phone. When they say we're thinking of selling our house, I would answer those questions. If it's and then I would do a call prior to the appointment so that I can confirm that they're still planning on meeting with me, right? I hope that answered your question. All right, now this is a PowerPoint. It's in the document library. For those of you that aren't in my system, you can make your own, right? And I'm sure your company may have one. What I have found, I've been at Keller Williams for a long time. I was at Century 21 for a long time. And Century 21 is part of the Rheology group, which means they have the same stuff by and large that Coldwell Banker and Better Homes and Gardens has, and EXP, and most of the company provided material for doing a listing appointment I don't use, right? How do you handle an objection? You're not local. I will list with the agent that will sell most of the homes here. All right. How would I handle? All right. So I would have already asked the people. So tell me, when you bought this home, right? Remember 12 years ago you bought this home. Why did you buy this home? And they're going to say whatever they're going to say. Do you remember who the listing agent was when you bought the home? Almost never do they remember the listing agent's name. Do you remember the company of the listing agent? They usually do not remember the name of the company. They might because it's a blue sign. I had one say it's a blue sign, so maybe it was Coldwell Banker. Tell me how the listing agent, when you bought the home 12 years ago, and Coldwell Banker, explain to me how they got you to buy this home. Explain that to me. How did they influence your decision? And then you wait. And they look at each other and they shrug and they say, well, they had nothing to do with it. Oh, they had nothing to do with it. Okay. So why do you think it's going to be different this time? The other question I would say is, so maybe I do not live in your neighborhood. Do you think buyers for your home is going to come from your neighborhood? When people are buying in your neighborhood, are they usually down the street? Are they in the same zip code? Are they in the same city? Or do you often have people coming in from out of the area that are buying the home? You see, we represent the people where the buyers are coming from, right? Not necessarily where the listing is. And then the other thing, this is something that I really like about EXP. Let me see if I can find it. So one of the things that you would do if you're with an EXP is prior, this is called KV Core. This is the system that we use for websites and technology. What you're going to do is go to listings. This is before you go on the appointment. And I've done one a little while ago, right? Which I'm just going to show you. So what I did on this property is I manually put it in. I went to manual listings and I put in the address of the property and I put in what I thought the price was going to be roughly, and I described the property. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to create something. This is a KV Core EXP kind of a thing called a pitch sheet. And it gives me a direct link to it. And it also, I think it's just going to let me look at it. So I bring this with me. And what I'm showing them is EXP, we're one broker, right? We have 3,777,446 agents in our company that are searching for homes in your price range right now, all over the world, but mostly in the United States we're talking about. 802,000 are active buyers at 578. We have 154 active buyers in San Jose. And out of those, 113 of them are in your price range. And I have their contact information. And one of the things I'm going to do as soon as I list your home, I'm going to send those 113 active buyers information about your property for sale. Did the other agents you talked to show you something like this? Right? They may have said, oh, well, we've got buyers for properties like yours. Did they show you something like this? Did they show you that they have contact information for 113 buyers that are interested in buying a property in your neighborhood? They probably didn't do it. So this is and how do we do this? Because most EXP agents are using KV Core and we're one office, one company, which means that all of the agents that have got, and by the way, this underestimates it because these are just the people that have searches from EXP agents that are using the KV Core system to send them listings. It doesn't include all of the other EXP agents that are using the MLS or other systems. And this is in KV Core. If you want to know how to reach out to me, if you want to know more about this, right? I'm just saying. All right. So this is, and what I would be doing, that's my team logo. You might want to replace that with your picture because I know what you guys are like. You should say you're with eXp Realty. The other thing you might replace is take the picture you took of the house. And what I oftentimes will do is put the address of the property and put it on every page. Here, what are your goals? Now, everybody seems to have the same goals. They either want to sell the property for the most money in the right time frame, either not too soon and not too long, and they want it to be the least inconvenient. Now, the reason I want to know which of these three would they say is their biggest goal. Because if they say we want to get the highest price possible, well, that may require that we take a certain amount of time to get there. And it might require that we do a lot to get the house ready to get the highest price possible. If you're saying, well, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to fix anything, I don't want to paint anything, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to stage it, I don't want to do anything, right? Can I sell my house? Sure, you can still sell your house, but you're not going to get the highest price possible. If talk to me about if you want copies of these things, right? But this is something I provide for the agents that are on my team. Then I have a mission statement, right? 4 factors in every sale, right? This is if they're asking me to give a presentation: price, exposure, presentation, managing the details. This is not the standard eXp presentation. It's not the Keller Williams presentation or the Coldwell Banker presentation. I think this is, something a little bit different, right? So how's the market? At this point, I would have included, and I think those of you that are in my group, I put in a sample of one where I was modifying it for a particular property. So what I would put in how's the market are graphs and charts. So if the property's in San Jose in a particular zip code or a particular neighborhood, I would be running statistics, not just about the Santa Clara County market or the San Jose market, but what's happening in that area, Blossom Valley or whatever. A little bit why pricing matters. Again, I may not go over this unless they, want me to know. Now, the point when we talk about next week, the CMA and all that, we want to price it low so that we can create a frenzy of activity. And I'm going to show you how to calculate in different markets how that low should be, how much it should be. So we want multiple offers. We want the open houses to be like anthills with people crawling over each other. And so if we price it low and we do everything right, we'll be able to sell it in 10 days. If we miss it and we do not sell it in the first 2 weeks, in the market that we're in right now, we've got problems. Because when you get to 2 or 3 weeks, people are saying, buyers and other agents, what's wrong with the property? One of the ways in which I explain the process of selling their home is the 3 phases. Phase 1 is pre-marketing. This, I tell them, is sometimes the most important stage. Because in this stage, we're going to get all the disclosures, all the reports, all the inspections, do everything that we need to do in order to get the property ready. Phase 2 is putting it on the market. That could be 10 days. It could be 2, depending on circumstances. And then phase 3 is once somebody has made an offer and we've accepted the offer. Pre-marketing. Now, I'm going to go just a few minutes over today, if that's okay with you guys. We're going to talk more about the CMA next week. But I'm in an area, and even if you're saying, well, we don't do that in our area, you ought to listen to me. Get all the inspections and reports, all the disclosures, everything done in advance. Get it done in advance. If you do, and I know I've heard it, right? Well, in my area, we don't get the sellers don't do the property inspection, the termite inspection, the roof inspection. We wait for the buyer to do it because the seller doesn't want to pay for it. And if the buyer does it, then the buyer pays for it. And the seller doesn't want to pay for it. It's cheaper for the seller, so we're not going to do it. Plus, other people don't do it in my area, so I'm not going to do it either. Now, the problem with not having a termite, a property, a roof, a chimney, and all of the different inspections that you might need is that if you do not have them, then you cannot expect a non-contingent offer, right? If you do not, and by the way, I tell sellers this, when I'm advising buyers or agents that have buyers, and I see, and they're asking me, well, what contingencies do we need? And I ask them, is there a termite in the property? And they say no. I'm like, good, That's good. And the reason it's good is we're going to make an offer now without an appraisal contingency. We're not going to have an appraisal contingency. We're going to make an offer without a loan contingency. But my loan agent says that I need a loan contingency and it's going to have to appraise because I don't have any extra. Don't worry about it. No appraisal contingency, no loan contingency. And the reason is because we're going to have an inspection contingency, which they should expect us to have because they don't have copies of all the reports. The new residential purchase agreement, and by the way, I have recently become certified by the CAR as a certified form trainer. I know what you're thinking. The guy's got no social life whatsoever. But paragraph 8C in the new residential purchase agreement repeats the language that was in paragraph 12 of the old purchase agreement. And the language says, and I'm quoting from the purchase agreement, the buyer's acceptance of the condition of the property and any other matter affecting the property is a contingency of this agreement. So we'll make an offer without a loan contingency, without an appraisal contingency, but we have an inspection contingency. What do we do if it doesn't appraise? And if the loan starts to fall apart, we back out using the inspection contingency. Oh, well, we looked at crime reports and there's crime in the neighborhood. And so, gee, we don't want to buy it. Oh, well, we looked at the school rankings and the school rankings aren't as high as we wanted. We're going to back out. Oh, well, we looked at the HOA docs and it says we can only have 2 pets and we plan on getting 3 or 4 pets. So that's not going to work. We're backing out. And then when the listing agent says, well, what can I do? What can we do to keep this together? Lower the price by the amount that it didn't appraise. Well, appraisal is a contingency. Hey, I don't care. We've still got an inspection contingency. If the buyer has an inspection contingency, they have a get out of escrow free card. Sellers and listing agents, this ought to be really important to you. When you're in contract, you do not fall out of contract. Just saying, you want it to close. 2 reasons why escrows don't close. 1 is because the buyer's financing falls apart. And 2, arguing over repairs. If I were in LA, I'd be telling, I know they don't do this as often down there. I'd be telling sellers, there's a small investment to get the inspections and reports in advance. You can bill escrow, right? You can bill escrow, but then we can have non-contingent offers. That means that when your house says sold, it has sold. You're going to get the TDS, the SPQ, all of that stuff, right? The statewide buyer and seller advisory, the local advice, everything. The buyers do not get a right to back out on the TDS or SPQ if it's given to them before they make the offer. You're going to have the NHD, you're going to have everything. And I might even already have a home warranty on the property. And the way I would sell it to a seller is, first of all, it's going to cover you during the listing period. Also, do you want to be sued in small claims court after escrow is closed? And by the way, I point out to sellers that agents have errors and omissions insurance, which doesn't protect them. Our deductible is lower if there's a home warranty. Why would the companies that insure real estate agents charge less as a deductible if there's a home warranty? The answer is because you're far less likely to get sued. Do you want to get sued when you sell your home? And the explanation about repairs and cleaning and staging, I go through this continuum. If you want to get the most money possible, you want to have a full retail sale. And a full retail sale is somebody that can just move their stuff in, right? Everything is fixed, it's repairs, it's cleaned, it's painted, it's staged, it looks beautiful. Immediately they like it when they see it and they can just move their stuff in. Photos in a virtual tour, I have a professional photographer. A 3D tour if it's that level of property, a virtual tour even if it's not a 3D tour. The guy has a drone and he flies around the outside of the home. Pre-marketing, preparation of marketing materials, pricing strategy. So this is what we're going to do before we put your home on the market. This is why it's going to take a few weeks. We're going to get all the inspections, all the reports, all the disclosures, get everything ready, get everything fixed up, because the goal is to put it on the market, sell the thing in the first weekend, second at the latest, set a 10-day, we're going to take offers date, get 10, 20, 30 offers on that day. That's pricing strategy, which we're going to talk about next week. Sell it, be done. And we do not want contingencies. We don't want contingencies. All right. So then I've thrown in a little, I actually have a 2021 profile. I'll change them. These are where did the buyers find their properties. This is a list of things that I would do: marketing to the public, digital marketing. That, by the way, is a picture of the last house that I went on an appointment with. What I would do is put in a picture of their house. Remember, we went and took a picture of the house. Your digital footprint. I make sure they understand. Do you like the Compass's website? Your listing is going to be on it. You like Coldwell Banker's website? Your listing will be on it. You like Keller Williams' website? Your listing is going to be on it. Your listing is going to be on everybody's website. Let's see. Do you put the disclosures on the MLS? Absolutely. That's the whole reason to have all the disclosures and reports. I use Disclosures.io. I may be using a new one at some point because I don't like HomeLight that much. But there are ways. What we want before the buyer makes an offer, we want the buyer to have a copy of everything. We want them to have all the inspections and the reports. We want them to have all the disclosures. We want everything, because it changes. If they have that information before they make the offer, their ability to back out has just plummeted, right? Because now we can say we don't want contingencies. If we don't do this, the day you give somebody an SPQ or TDS, they have 5 days to back out of the contract. It's a statutory thing. They don't have to do it in good faith. You give them an NHD, they have a statutory right to back out of the contract. If you do this before they write the offer, no time to back out of the contract, right? No time. They'll make a non-contingent offer. Open house strategy. Now, again, I don't necessarily go through this whole thing, right? But depending on what they want to know, or if they say, give us your presentation. If the property is a valuable property, right, and I'm getting paid enough, I would not just have a regular virtual tour, which is easy. My photographer takes pictures, we stitch them together. There's music in the background. There's things talking about the different rooms. It looks nice. But a 3D virtual tour, right, is like the gold standard in virtual tours. And if it's an expensive house and a nice neighborhood and big value, it deserves that. I talk about staging, right? That is an example of 2 rooms and the difference between staging. People make decisions about what house they're going to buy pretty much instantly when they walk in. And the way we've learned how to get the properties ready is we follow what the new home builders do, because they've studied this a lot and they know it gets people to buy a house. Communication, this is sort of my marketing plan. A lot of this, by the way, was in the pre-listing packet. You can put your own picture in it, that sort of thing. That's an example. People want to know the process, right? And that's why I break it up into those different phases and sell them on getting everything done in advance. You'll be happier, right? All right, I went on a little bit. How many people did I lose? Not too many. These are the kinds of things that I provide to people that are on my team, that are in my group, that I'm coaching. If you are interested in talking about how you could get a lot more help with doing this sort of stuff, reach out to me. You have my contact information. Next week, we're going to talk about the CMA, pricing strategies, net sheets, how to do it, how to be good enough at it that you can do it right at the appointment if you needed to. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. I hope you found that fun. Talk to you later.